Hello, everyone. In this video, we will summarize the podcast on the following title, Controlling Your Dopamine for Motivation, Focus, and Satisfaction. From Huberman Lab Podcast, dopamine is one of the most complex and fascinating molecules in the human brain and body. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that plays a crucial role in motivation, reward, and pleasure. Perhaps foremost among these is motivation, our drive to pursue meaningful goals and rewards. It is released in response to pleasurable stimuli and reinforces behaviors that lead to positive outcomes. Dopamine exerts its effects through two major circuits. The mesocorticolimbic pathway coordinates motivation, reward seeking, and desire. It connects regions involved in craving like the nucleus accumbens and prefrontal cortex. Damage here underlies addictions that hijack dopamine peaks. Separately, the nigrostriatal pathway supports movement through connections between the substantia nigra and striatum. Parkinson's disease can damage this circuit. These three circuits work together to regulate dopamine release and control behavior. Within these circuits, dopamine is released through two modes: localized synaptic transmission or broader volumetric diffusion. These spatial effects link to dopamine's temporal dynamics. It can influence neurons quickly through receptor-mediated phasic bursts, but also more slowly by altering baseline levels that moderate overall functioning. This interplay between tonic and phasic release governs dopamine's role in mood, energy, and the experience of pleasure. Peaks in dopamine above baseline produce desirable states like excitement, while the baseline modulates a person's general tendencies. Critically, engaging rewards risks, lowering this baseline, dampening future motivation, despite producing temporary satisfaction. Several case studies have illustrated how individuals have successfully controlled their dopamine levels to achieve their goals. These case studies demonstrate the effectiveness of various tools and methods. There are a few tools for controlling dopamine release, including exercise, meditation, nutrition, sleep, social interaction, supplements, and more. These tools can be combined for maximum effect and can help achieve sustained increases in baseline dopamine. Many routine behaviors and exogenous compounds impact dopamine balance on different timescales. These can be thought of as tools for controlling dopamine levels. First tool: cold water exposure naturally raises baseline dopamine in a protective, sustainable fashion linked to improved well-being and cognitive performance. Immersing in cold water for 10 to 60 minutes can rapidly increase dopamine levels by 250% via norepinephrine stimulation. The effects last hours. Done properly, it enhances mood, energy, and cognition. Second tool: caffeine from specific sources increases dopamine receptors over months. Small regular doses are protective, unlike coffee, which can disrupt sleep patterns. Please remember that caffeine should be used in moderation and with caution. The next tool is pursuit versus consummation. Chasing rewards spikes dopamine while receiving them lowers it. Pursuit must be balanced, sustainable, and avoid constant overstimulation to prevent dopamine depletion. Acute stimulants can dangerously spike phasic bursts, risking addiction, yet provide little long-term gain. Constant overstimulation seems to render dopamine unable to sufficiently motivate through normal rewards over the long run. The fourth tool is quitting sugars or palatable foods. The going 48 hours without these rewards avoids spikes, then crashes whilst resensitizing dopamine receptors to natural rewards. Weaning is preferable to abrupt cessation. Another tool is to exercise in morning sunlight. Combined acute and chronic, the effects elevate dopamine for hours optimally when in sync with circadian rhythms. Intensity matters more than duration. Tool number 6 would be mucuna pruriens, which is a velvety bean whose contents are L-DOPA. L-DOPA crosses the blood-brain barrier to stimulate dopamine synthesis. Believe it or not, the content of this bean is the precursor to dopamine. So mucuna pruriens is sold over the counter, at least in the United States. And it literally is the precursor to dopamine, meaning if you take it, you will experience very large increases in dopamine. Those increases are transient and very, very intense. Do note that it may cause nausea, headache, or crash after honeymoon effect ends. Next is the L-tyrosine supplementation. A dietary amino acid raises dopamine production without major side effects at moderate doses, around 500 to 1,000 milligrams. Lastly, pause phone use. The smartphones hijack dopamine circuits in maladaptive ways, undermining real-world motivation if overused in evenings. Overall, balancing acute dopamine elevations with strategies for gradual, sustainable increases in baseline levels seems most conducive to long-term well-being satisfaction. Remember that acute stimulants can dangerously spike phasic bursts, risking addiction, yet provide little long-term gain. Constant overstimulation seems to render dopamine unable to sufficiently motivate through normal rewards over the long run. On this addiction and depression can be avoided by controlling dopamine release and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. It includes avoiding dopamine stacking and using the tools and methods discussed in the above to achieve desired outcomes. For reference, dopamine stacking is the simultaneous use of multiple chemicals and behaviors that increase dopamine release. It can lead to underwhelming performance and should be avoided. Genetic stress, exercise, diet, and other lifestyle priority. Also shape individual dopamine function in complex, highly contextual ways. Factors like chronic stress or an imbalanced microbiome can degrade dopamine health, while supportive regimens may enhance it. However, more research is still needed given individual variability. While some evidence-informed strategies were proposed, wisdom and restraint seem most prudent for optimization. However, there are compounds that protect dopamine neurons. These include antioxidants, anti-inflammatory agents, and neurotrophic factors. These compounds can be incorporated into a healthy lifestyle to protect dopamine neurons and maintain optimal dopamine. A take-home message is that no simplistic view of dopamine hits can adequately represent this intricate system. A balanced, nuanced perspective attuned to personal health priorities may be most constructive. Constantly seeking intense peaks is unwise and unlikely to sustain well-being, while moderate, sustainable strategies respecting an individual's needs seem most compatible with deriving ongoing satisfaction from life through innate rewards themselves. Overall, wisdom and nuance are needed to understand how best supporting our amazing dopamine systems can enhance lives over the long term. In closing, additional rigorous study of these profound but delicate human phenomena will be important to illuminate more thoughtful, effective means of optimization for each unique situation. With open and thoughtful discussion of science, we can continue progressing towards those aims.